my name is Melinda Beezer, and this is Family Incest Part 6. Sorry about all these videos. I mean, I'd like to do this just in one long line instead of having to record one short video after another, but this is YouTube's ruling, so I have to put together a bunch of these small videos. Anyway, in my previous video Part 5, we discuss my dad's beginning his abuse of my cousin Jennifer. She was his next victim after me. Now, Jennifer differed from me in a lot of ways. I think the best way to describe is to describe Jennifer and how she was raised. Jennifer and I were very close. In fact, we remain close to this day. She's my best friend. She's always been my best friend. In fact, she's more like a sister to me than basically my own sister. And I think the reason why we bonded so completely, or why we've remained so close, is because we have similar living situations as far as growing up. I grew up knowing that my mother didn't love me. I grew up under my mother's verbal abuse. I grew up knowing that my mom didn't like me. Jennifer suffered the same fate. Her mom was just as abusive as my mom. She didn't like Jennifer. In fact, I remember being in a grocery store when Jennifer was just a little kid, and her mom stood right there before me, and Jennifer was standing right next to me, and told people at the store, she introduced her younger daughter, Stephanie, and then she turned to Jennifer and said, "And this one I just didn't want." Right there in front of Jennifer. And so Jennifer grew up not knowing what love was. She didn't get attention. She was not liked by her own mother. And I can't tell you how damaging it is when your own mother doesn't love you, your own mother doesn't believe in you, your own mother doesn't even like you. I can't explain to anyone how painful and how damaging that is to a child. I mean, if your own mother doesn't like you, who in the frickin' world is going to? And so that was Jennifer's living situation. And then she kind of latched on to me, and I latched on to her. And we became each other's family. And that led Jennifer into the path of a pedophile, my father. And I thought I could protect her. I thought I could keep her away from her. I thought I could keep her under supervision. And I was lonely, and it was more important for me to have somebody, to spend time with than it was to keep that person safe. I was selfish and self-centered. And not proud of that. And so Jennifer, through spending time with me, was placed into the path of a pedophile, and my dad began molesting her. But his abuse of Jennifer progressed far further than it did with me. Jennifer didn't have supportive parents. She wasn't loved at home. She wasn't accepted. And she needed those things. Everybody needs to be loved. Everybody needs attention. And my dad gave her that attention. He gave her that love and affection that she needed. And in return for the things that my dad gave her, Jennifer allowed my dad to. She became the perfect candidate to abuse. She allowed him to molest her. She didn't stop him. She didn't complain. And when Jennifer was only 14 years of age, the sexual molestation progressed into rape. Jennifer made the critical mistake. I was asleep in my room. In fact, I was passed out drunk because my dad had taken to supplying me with alcohol. He was real big on getting kids to drink, and he had supplied me with alcohol, and I had drank so much that I passed out. And Jennifer was bored, and she couldn't sleep, and everything like that, and for some reason that even she doesn't understand, she sought out my dad, and she made the mistake of going into his room. And from there, she entered into a nightmare that she would be in for a very long time. When she went into my dad's room, he pulled her down onto the bed, and he had sexual intercourse with her. And Jennifer asked him to stop. Obviously, it was painful. Obviously, it wasn't right. You know, she cried, she was hurting, everything like that. It was a horrible experience for her. And, you know, afterwards, there was no help for her. I was passed out drunk. There was no help for her. And afterwards, when it was done, she got out of my dad's bed, she took a shower, and she didn't say anything to me. She kept it hidden. Because in Jennifer's mind, it was her fault. She went into his bedroom. I would never understand that decision. And in a lot of ways, Jennifer was right. Back then, that was a decision I couldn't have even fathomed. Why the frick would you go into the bedroom of somebody who was molesting you? That's just, you know, that's just tempting the alligator. And it would take me many, many years before I would understand that decision. And now, as in my 30s, having had a lifetime of growing, I can look back on it and realize just how manipulative my father was. I can look back on Jennifer and see her as a child starved for love. She was basically the perfect victim to abuse. And his sexual relationship with Jennifer continued from that point on, whether I was there or I wasn't. I eventually, after my mom kicked me out, I eventually was forced to return. Eventually I had no other options. I was forced to return to my dad's room. And it was my senior year of high school, second semester of my senior year of high school, and I hadn't even settled into my new class in my new school before Jennifer filed charges with the Whitman County Sheriff's Department to have my dad arrested. And it was at this point that I learned that my dad not only was sexually molesting Jen, which I already knew, knew or suspected, but that he was having sexual intercourse with her, which is something hadn't considered. I couldn't believe that it went that far. And so began that investigation. Well, of course, my dad finds out that he's under investigation, that Jen's trying to turn him in. And he starts crying, and he starts threatening to kill himself if he has to go to jail. And, you know, basically uses my love for him against me in every way possible. And, you know, he begs me, you know, that I've got to get him off. I've got to save him. I've got to stop Jen. He's threatening to kill himself. And I'm worried about what's going to happen to the ranch. And I'm worried about the fact that my mom kicked me out, and if Dad goes to jail, where am I ending up? And I'm sorry, you know, I look back at this and go, God, I was self-centered. Self-preservation kicks in. By that point I'm so delusional and so messed up from everything that's been going on that all I can think about is I've got to survive. And somebody has to take care of me. And if Dad goes to jail, I don't have anywhere else to go. So I had a letter that my cousin had written to me, that Jennifer wrote to me, and she had written the letter basically because I stopped speaking to her. It was during one of the periods where I was mad at her, and I wasn't speaking to her because I wanted to save her from my dad. So she had written me this letter in which she denies to me that Dad's doing anything to her, that she basically says that your dad's not doing anything to me, I'm sorry, and the only reason she wrote it is because she was trying to get back into my good graces. So I turn around and pull out this letter that she sent me, and my dad sends me up to be interviewed by the Whitman County Sheriff's Department about Jen's accusations, and I proceed to present the Sheriff's Department with this frickin' letter in which Jen denies that Dad's doing anything to her. So now it looks like she's lying. And, I bear my own responsibility in that. That was the wrong thing to do. But the Whitman County Sheriff's Department did not do an investigation. They didn't investigate anything. Had they done an investigation and looked into the situation, they would have found out through my parents' divorce, which is a matter of public record, that my dad had been accused of sexually molesting me. Now, I was questioned by the sheriff's department, and about what I saw. And quite honestly, I was honest with the sheriff's department in the fact that I never saw Dad do anything to Jennifer, because whenever I had that sick feeling inside me that he was doing something to Jennifer, like in the backseat of the car, I kept my eyes forward because I wasn't looking. I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to deal with the trauma of that. And so the sheriff's department, they just took that letter, and my dad was golfing buddies with the then sheriff, and so they just tossed it aside, and Jennifer was a liar and a troublemaker. And of course Jennifer was enraged with me because I had betrayed her. I had betrayed her in the worst possible way. She was furious, and rightly so. Talk about being a backstabbing witch, so to speak. That was me. And I have to live with the shame of that decision. I had to live with the guilt of that decision, because I knew Jennifer was right. I knew my dad belonged behind bars. I knew what the right course was. Instead, I chose the wrong course. I backed the monster, just like everybody in my family did. I did to Jennifer what everybody had done to me when I was the one sitting in the chair as the victim. And to this day, I'll never understand why I made that decision. I mean, my dad was a master manipulator. I mean, he had me over a barrel. He had me convinced that if he went down, I was going down too. I mean, where would I go? And he used that to the ultimate advantage. Did I want to be responsible for my dad killing himself? No, I didn't want to be responsible. At that point, I still loved my dad. I didn't want my dad to die. I just wanted my dad to get help. I thought that I could, save Jennifer. I didn't support her efforts with the sheriff department, but I'd keep Jennifer away from my dad. Never realizing until much, much later that my refusal to support her when she needed me led her to believe the same thing that I had learned through my mother, that she had no value, that she was worthless. And that, if I wasn't willing to save her, if I wasn't willing to stand up and say it was wrong, then what my dad was doing to her wasn't wrong. And so she drifted back into that abusive relationship. And she would continue in that abusive relationship with my dad until she hit the age of 21, when she finally managed to get herself out of it. And I bear the guilt and responsibility in the fact that I had a chance to put this monster away, and instead I did what the rest of my family did. I protected the monster. And that's not a proud moment, and that's not an easy thing to live with. And that concludes this segment